Hi everyone, my name is Chloe Choi, and today my tech talk will be about errors and exceptions. Okay, what are errors and exceptions? When I first came to full stack and start using JavaScript, I was so confused because it seems like there is no difference between errors and exceptions in JavaScript. It was so confusing me, so that was the origin of my tech talk topic. There are significant differences between errors and exceptions. First, errors indicate something went wrong outside of your program. It can be a CPU problem or memory problem or running out of system resources, catastrophic, whatever it is. Since we can't handle the environment of our program, it is really hard to recover from the errors. And for that reason, you are not supposed to catch the errors because you're not going to be able to handle it. On the other hand, exceptions. Exceptions are more like something extraordinary happened during the execution. It's always not that bad, not as bad as errors. In a lot of modern programming languages, exceptions are replacing error codes because of convention for a human, for us. So to do something with exceptions, you don't have to terminate your program because you can deal with the exceptions inside of your program. And then also it's possible to recover from exceptions. Okay. Let me talk about something differences between errors and exceptions in other language, lower language Java. In Java, errors and exceptions are both subclasses of throwable class. As this diagram shows, they are both throwable and catchable. Wait, didn't I just mention that you're not supposed to catch the errors? You can if you really want, but it's not going to be it's not going to be possible for you to recover from the errors. I'll show you this example. I hope you can see this. So I made these out of memory errors, and even if you catch the error, you're not going to be able to recover from it because the garbage collection is not able to clean the memory at first. So it's going to be kept out of memory, and no matter whether you catch the error or not, your program is going to be failing. On the other hand, exceptions can be more generous, and it can be more like edge cases you didn't catch. So it's telling that problem is from your program, not from environment. So from my understanding, the difference between errors and exceptions are more for us to understand how the problem is coming from. Okay, but JavaScript doesn't have this difference between errors and exceptions. Why? JavaScript, they sound so familiar, right? They sound like sibling languages, aren't they? Nah, they are totally different languages, like ham and hamster. So back to JavaScript. JavaScript is not a compiled language, at least before Node. And because it was not compiled and run, it was only interpreted by browsers. So back then, it only had error cured by window.error. For that reason, there is no check error or runtime error in JavaScript. The JavaScript doesn't have to have this kind of error because it's not compiled and run. So we are using exceptions and errors all the time by meaning the same. Exceptions are just an instance of error object, which is built-in object in JavaScript. Okay, there are 7 error types in JavaScript. I'm not going to talk about what is doing what because I want to focus more on handling errors. I'll be talking about very simple error handling for the first. which is when you are making only one function, doing just very simple thing, not even related to some other classes or function. Let me go to, how can I go to, yeah. Before I talk about error handling, JavaScript is too generous and nice. Sometimes it's really annoying because JavaScript is really, JavaScript never gives up. So whenever you ask JavaScript to do something weird, like return something which is not in the array I'm giving, or return something index of the string I'm giving, JavaScript tries its best and try to return, not breaking. And it's sometimes a little annoying. So you can always make special value as return. So when you return a function from, when you return a value from a function, as you can see, if you are expecting an integer from the function, you can make these two conditions. Like if it's not an integer, you can console log that, oh, it's not integer, and return null. And if it's out of bounds, you can just say, using console log, oh, it's out of bounds, and return null, so that we can know that there is something wrong. And I can do this. But we want more than that. Because as a developers, we're all done with that, yeah. As developers, we want something more than that. We need to check if our return value are legitimate or just an error code. To do that, JavaScript has invented exception. So JavaScript has a built-in error object, as I mentioned earlier. And whenever there is an error, you can create an instance of error using error constructor, giving two parameters of name and message of the error. But how to use the exception? Here you go. Throw. You can use throw to raise an exception. Throw is very powerful and handy. So raising an exception causes a magical, super power charged return, which not only just getting out of this current function, but also all the way down of the first execution of the function, and which is called stuck unwinding. It can be a little dangerous because if we just throw an exception and never catch or handle it, it can cause losing processes or even memory leaking, which is not good. So we want to do something more secure, which can be try, catch, finally. Yes. The funny thing about try, catch, finally is that it's kind of universal. Java uses it, and C++ uses it, and Python has try, except, or something kind of that, and JavaScript has it. I will going to show you about another, how can I go? I believe that try, catch, finally is really familiar for use. Try is always a first code, whatever is executed, and if there is an error or exception, it's immediately moving to catch. Remember that the first, whatever it is, just pass to catch block is always evaluated as error. And then finally, you can just think of finally as that cleaning some messed up stuff. So finally is whatever you want to put after all the execution of your code, you can just put them in finally. So finally is executed after try or even catch. It's always executing. Okay, but exception is only a synchronous mechanism. So when we work on asynchronous environment, the exception could be thrown and the handler will be out of scope. Like another example I made here. So I made a really long name function will be out of scope when error happens. So this function executes this async function, which is called wait then through error, which is down there. So this function waits 2 seconds and do something, which is going to cause error because I made it to break. And by the time it causes error, we can assume that, oh, it's gonna catch the error. But nah, it's not gonna catch the error because it's async. So by this time, this will be out of scope when error happens, gets to catch. It doesn't get any, so it can't even catch the error. You don't believe me? I will show you. Yeah, so waiting 2 seconds before throwing error is wait then throw error function. Try here, and then there is an error here, but it doesn't catch, and it just executes whatever it is in finally function because it can't catch anything. This will be out of whatever function, and then wait then throw error. Those two functions are not able to catch the errors. It's not good. So in asynchronous environment, we can't immediately calculate the return value because the return value is passed through a callback function. Sounds familiar for us, right? So before looking to another final example, I will show you a disaster-looking callback how. So this is called callback how. I didn't name it. If you Google callback how, there is always this name as like a lot of curly braces, pyramid of all the nested function, heavily nested so that you can't even read what it is. So this function is very bad practice, example of very bad practice. But if you start moving your functions out of way like this, so try to make a function deal with only one thing at once. It will look a lot better and clearer. So to deal with async environment, you can always remember that make functions simple and don't nest functions, and don't be afraid of making any new functions or name the functions. Okay. That was the last example I wanted to show. So, yeah, back to the beginning. What are the differences between errors and exceptions? Actually, there are no differences between errors and exceptions for a computer. Computer doesn't care. Computer doesn't know what errors are, what exceptions are, but it's all for conventions for human, for us, to understand better and to deal with the whatever extraordinary condition better. And then I know that we all try hard to write error-free code, write never-breaking code, but throwing exceptions every time for each single possible situation can never be a bad practice. So don't be afraid of making single variables or single functions to deal with every specific extraordinary situations, because we're not talking to computer directly. The code block should be readable and understandable by human us, and that's communicating between us is the best way to break errors and exceptions. Yeah, that's it.